right. I'm going to show you a mixed media technique about image transferring, and I'll talk to you in a couple weeks about how to transfer images to surfaces like paper that are absorbent. But this time we're going to talk about how to transfer images that you print out. If you're a design and digital art student, you could even print out some of your own vector drawings. If you don't know what those are, no worries. You can print out photographs that you've taken or like drawings from the internet or whatever, and combine them to create something new. So our finished results are going to look a little bit like this, and these were started just as a normal acrylic painting on a hard-backed canvas, and then through layering and a technique called gel transfer, you can create kind of a neat mixed media look. So I'll start with these two. And because of time's sake, I'll be using a blow dryer. I would suggest that you let your images set overnight, or at least for like 20 minutes, and then blow dry it. I am impatient and I rush a lot of things, and for this demo it's going to be no different. So here we have two of the same kind of painting, painted on the same backing. It's not a bad idea to start small with these. Just, you know, if you're trying a new technique, sometimes you get a better handle on something if it's a little bit smaller. But this image below is one step ahead of the process here. So first, I'll start with this image to show you how to get your initial transfer onto a painting. And I'm going to choose from my pictures here. I have a map of Chaska, some power lines, and a map of, I don't know. Just to note, if you're using anything with words, you want to make sure that you flip this. It's called flipping horizontally in Photoshop. If you don't know how to do that, that's totally fine. Let me know. I can help you on this computer, or I can send you to a computer with Photoshop if you know how to do that. If you see this, Chaska is written, it's like a mirror image, because when we flip anything with words down like this, that way it'll transfer the correct way. So I use the Chaska map on this one just to be a little bit different. I'm using something called gloss medium, and it's just like acrylic paint that dries clear. So I want to take a brush, a clean brush, so that I don't get any pigment on my painting, and I'm going to paint a layer of gloss medium onto my painting. This can get kind of scary, but it's just a good lesson in letting go too. I don't want to forget about the edges, and the consistency of this is really important. I don't want it goopy, because then it'll take forever to dry and it will dry lumpy and gross. So I'm just going to paint one nice layer over this, but I don't want to be stingy either. I want it to look kind of opaque like this, kind of like foggy. So I'm going to take my pre-cut piece of paper, and I'm going to press this down, starting from the middle out to get rid of any air bubbles. I don't want to neglect my edges here. First, I'm using my hands because I don't want to press so hard that I squeeze any excess, oops, let's focus. There we go. So that I don't squeeze any excess gel medium out from my painting. Once I've secured it with my hands, I'm going to take either the edge of a scissors, or these are called bone folders. They're used for bookmaking, or a credit card works. Oops, don't want to do that. And I'm just going to kind of lightly and gently press this down. And what we're trying to do here is secure the ink to that gel medium so that it will stick. And in the end, we're going to get rid of this paper and then hopefully have a good transfer. All right. So I'm going to do this a little bit. Try not to rip your paper, because where it rips, you won't get a transfer. You want to kind of let go of the idea of getting a perfect transfer every time, because it doesn't always happen despite your best intentions. These pieces tend to look kind of layered, ethereal, maybe a little bit vintage. So if you just have that idea in mind, you may be less disappointed until you become an expert, and then you'll never have problems. So I'm going to let this dry. Like I said, if I were you, I would let it dry longer than what I'm going to do, and we're just going to gamble and see what happens. So while we're waiting, we're going to pretend that it's done, and I have this piece right here. So I have scrubbed the paper off of this, and it's ready to kind of touch up. And you might notice, we'll zoom in there, despite my best intentions, that there's a little bit of paper residue left on here after washing it a couple of times. Sometimes this happens. It has something to do with the drying process, like I said, and rushing it. But we can fix this. So we have our transfer, and what I would do next is, with my paint, I would just create a little bit more depth, a little bit more layering. You can create glazes with your acrylic paint, so your acrylic paint plus water, to kind of set your transfers back a little bit. So what I mean by that is, if I didn't want this stuff to be so noticeable in the sky, I could mix a little bit of white, a little bit of blue, a little bit of yellow, to try and match that color, and add white, or add water rather, especially when you're working with white that's really opaque. It'll make things cloudy fast. You want to add water, depending on how much you want to see. So I can use my finger too to blend this. I could use a dry brushing technique, where I take a dry paintbrush and just lightly kind of smear my glaze around. So like I said, this not only gets rid of some of those pieces of paper that get stuck on here, but it also starts to create that sense of depth that is so cool about mixed media work. It's one of the reasons why I like working this way. So thanks for bearing with me. I'll do this as fast as I can, but I want to show you all the steps of the process that I've learned too. So you don't have to paint over everything. This is a good lesson too in knowing when to stop and knowing when to leave some of this imagery showing through, but kind of playing with cleaning it up and then leaving some of this too, because if you cover all of it up, what's the point of going through the process? Somebody asked me, could you do this with oil? And you could, but the drying time with oil is so long that if you are as impatient as me, you don't want to do this over a series of months. You want to do it over a series of days. You could, at the very end, if you secured this with gel medium, you could do an oil painting over it, and I'll talk about that in a little bit. So I'm just trying to get rid of those kind of chalky areas. All right, so that's looking a little bit better. I've pushed this back a little bit, gotten rid of the fuzzies. I'm going to leave this one be for a second.